ongoing technical challenges. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. It's nice to be here. A little bit odd presenting in this manner, but I think I'm pleased to be here nonetheless, and thank you for that introduction. So a few technical difficulties this morning. I hope this proceeds smoothly. We'll move forward and let's get started. I thought I might just start with, let's see if this advances here. Apologies, we're just trying to get the presentation sorted. It will not advance right now.
Elizabeth, you might have to advance the slide if Kelly's unable to do it.
Did you advance it, Elizabeth, or did I? Okay, great. So brief agenda, I'll talk a little bit about Calgary Municipal Land Corporation and who we are as an organization. Speak a little bit about East Village in the context of the broader Rivers District Master Plan, and that will feed into our discussion about the Culture and Entertainment District. A little bit about our Rivers District Master Plan as a whole, the Culture and Entertainment District, which of course is the focus today, and then projects that are shaping that district. Advance, please. So Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, we're referred to as CMLC for those that aren't familiar with the organization, or Calgary. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of the City of Calgary. So I'm often asked the question, are we a public entity or are we a private entity? And we are wholly owned by the city, although we operate more as a private entity. We were created back in 2007 with the sole purpose of implementing the Rivers District Revitalization Plan. So that plan really looked at the Rivers District and East Village with a focus on East Village to develop out that area. The whole Rivers District is approximately 310 acres, with East Village just making up a small component to that, about 50 acres on the north side. So the whole Rivers District, really, it's bounded on the north and east by the rivers, the Bow River on the north and the Elbow River on the east, and a large kind of Ramsey Cliff or valley on the east side. On the south side, it's bounded by 25th Avenue, which is just south of Stampede Park. And Stampede Park is primarily a private lands. There's a little bit of lands that they have a long-term city lease on, but for the most part, it's private lands. And then it's bounded on the west by McLeod Trail, First Street Southeast. So a little bit of context about the Rivers District, which is really our playground and what I'll be speaking about today. So we have a 20-year master plan to revitalize East Village. And that mandate was extended out to 2047. And I can speak about that in just a few minutes. Could advance the slide, please, Elizabeth. Thanks. So East Village itself, a little bit of history for those that don't know the area. It is on the east side of Calgary's downtown core, quite a large area. Back in the 1800s, it was the traditional territory for the Blackfoot Nation, a very significant area, pardon me, at the fork of the Bow River and the Elbow River. 1875-ish, the Northwest Mounted Police showed up on the scene, and that resulted in Fort Calgary, which still stands today. That's one of our current projects as well. And then in the early 1900s, it really started to take on kind of the form of a city, and that's when we started to see this really vibrant community, this mixed-use community starting to grow out of that area. That was not to last long, and then 1930s and 40s, the area started to decline for a number of reasons. And then at that point, the health authorities and the local authorities started to deem the area Skid Row. And in that, it was sort of in that period of time that they started to take down a number of structures in the area to try and mitigate some of the activity in the area. There were a number through the 1950s, 1960s, there were a number of urban renewal schemes that for the most part, they had very limited success. And really didn't produce any results in terms of developing the area. So early 2000s, CMLC arrived to start the revitalization plan, and that's when really the area started to take off in terms of development, or East Village did anyway. Just advance, please. It's jumping ahead on you. That's the one? Okay, there we go. So image on the left again just shows the rivers, the entirety of the Rivers District, the Culture and Entertainment District, which sits to the south end, which is south of 9th Avenue and the railroad tracks. East Village is just the white square in the north, to the north of the district as well. The building on the right, I included that building. It's significant in terms of East Village development. Really, it was the catalyst project for the East Village development and sort of ground zero, if you will, in that development. It is an old mattress manufacturing building, and it sat vacant for many, many years until CMLC purchased it with significant discount from the city of Calgary to think about how we could repurpose that building and really transform the area along the river there as well. So I'll speak a little bit more about that project in just a minute as well. I just wanted to highlight that that was kind of the center point of the East Village development. Next slide, please. And there's I quickly highlighted sort of the area of the Simmons building. It becomes significant in sort of its proximity to the riverway. So prior to the development in the early 2000s up to the current point, really there was very little access for the public along the waterfront there. And so we very intentionally, we were very mindful about how we would repurpose that building. And at the time we were thinking that we wanted a minimum of 3 businesses in there. And really that was to try and create some energy and activate that area. In addition to that, we created the River Walk, which you'll see in a few images, but between the River Walk and the Simmons building redevelopment, we really started to focus on that area and drawing pedestrians and visitors to the area from the west. So that River Walk connects areas in Calgary like Eau Claire, which is further to the west, or Princess Island Park, and started to give people a reason to walk kind of east into East Village. Prior to the Simmons building development, we had the Fort Calgary development, which you can't see, it's just off to the right in this image. Eau Claire is off to the left. There was no reason really for anyone to walk between those two amenities. Instead, they would sort of skirt around East Village, given that it was really an undesirable area to spend any amount of time in. So the work that we do in East Village and the Rivers District as a whole is funded through a community revitalization levy. So we refer to it as the CRL. And it really was a first for a Canadian municipality. It was quite popular in the States. This kind of subsidy is referred to as a TIF in the States, but really for Canada, we were the first to really undertake utilizing the subsidy. So it's a finance structure, and it's a way to subsidize development through some public works and some infrastructure. And it's really structured to sort of advance some tax rates so that we can do work early on. So kind of the gist of it is back in 2007, 2008, the property taxes in the area were frozen. And then as we attracted private development to the area, eventually a new tax rate would be reestablished, and you get the uplift from that tax rate to go kind of back into the coffers to feed projects in the area. So it is just a funding mechanism that we use to fund the CMLC CRL projects. There are a number of projects, of course, in the district that have other partners, funding partners as well. But for the most part, the very early work that CMLC undertook was the infrastructure and the programming and the activation, some public art projects as well, and some placemaking efforts. And so that's where the CRL was channeled to originally in with our original mandate. So as we rebuilt East Village and that was successful, then we turned our sights to kind of the south end of the district toward Victoria Park and Calgary Stampede area. And I think back in 2018, the City Council approved the CMLC mandate to extend from 2027 to 2047. So our original mandate was from 2007 to 2027. And because of the success of the East Village, they extended that mandate out to 2047. So the CRL funding structure, the idea is that in 2047, CMLC will close their doors and the last dollar would have been spent, and the community, the East Village community and the Rivers District will be a self-sustaining, vibrant, active community. Next slide, please. So if we're talking about the Rivers District Master Plan, that was one of the first efforts that CMLC undertook when they were created, and that was to think about the area as a whole, as you saw it in a previous slide. Very, very unique opportunity in the sense that this 310-ish acres of land was relatively undeveloped. There were some residential towers in the area, the Simmons structure as well, some old hotels with a very colorful past and colorful history. So, but for the most part, it was a clean slate, if you will, in terms of a master plan. So very, very unique in the sense that this very large area with an urban context could be master planned through the whole area. So an opportunity certainly that we were very, very excited about, and for the most part doesn't really exist, to my knowledge anyway, in Canada. Maybe the waterfront in Toronto might be the most comparative example we can look at, but really a unique opportunity to think and be very, very thoughtful about how we wanted to develop out the area. The image on the left there is the Riverwalk development that I was just speaking about. So if you were to wind your way along that path, and just the top right corner of that image, if you were to just go a little bit further, you would see the Simmons building, which is the project that I was just speaking about. So prior to this Riverwalk path, it was really just this kind of treed, forested area that didn't allow any access to the waterway there. So really opened up the area, and then, as I mentioned, would allow people to kind of be drawn east toward Fort Calgary through East Village, coming from downtown core. And then the image on the right is St. Patrick's Island, another large project that CMLC completed back in 2016, I think it was complete. Again, a master planned park, and that park largely was unoccupied, undesirable, and there really wasn't any direct access into that park other than from the south, or sorry, the east end, which was kind of the zoo access. So not a real specific purpose for that park. And we came back in and reinstated some of the waterways. So you see this kind of channel that winds its way through the island that had been at some point filled in. And so we did some research, some historical research, to determine what kind of the original path of that water was, and then reinstated that channel. There's some park structures in there, and there's some pathways as well, and some washroom amenities through that park. And it now connects both the Memorial Trail pathway to the north and East Village to the south. I'll just move quickly through the slides because I do want to get to the Culture and Entertainment District portion of the presentation. Just wanted to note that part of the task in developing out the village was not simply building things or infrastructure projects, but thinking about how we could program and activate the space. So really, first and foremost, CMLC is a placemaker and a community builder. That was what we set our sights on, and that was our mandate as well. So through programming and placemaking, we hoped to attract residents to the area, but also to be very, very thoughtful about how we treated the residents that already existed in the district. So the idea was not to run out any specific demographic that already existed in the building, but to think really about how we could kind of coexist and create a very, very diverse and vibrant community. So there were some seniors living in the district. There's also the Calgary Drop-In Center, if anybody was familiar. The Calgary Drop-In Center tries to alleviate the impacts of poverty. They also deal with populations that are experiencing homelessness. So those were the types of partners that we wanted to continue to have a relationship with, and really understand their perspective and how they used the area before we came in and implemented any plans that we had. So again, we are looking to attract private development in terms of commercial and residential, but also to be very considerate about how the existing residents of East Village would respond to that development as well. It was CMLC's role, it still is, to fully activate and program the area. So some people are unaware, but CMLC does operate and maintain East Village, and we program the area. And again, much like the intent is in 2047 that we sort of use our last dollar, it is also our intent at that point to kind of back out of the area in terms of programming and activation, and even maintenance, and turn it over to the community to sort of self-sustain. So our programming was, like, I would say 100% back in 2007 and 8, and it has ramped down. And the idea is that our programming would ramp down as the community can manage its own programming and activation. So that's a really important component of the work that we do. Next slide, please. This just speaks to the programming as well. Just some images there of the examples of the programming through the district. Cultural partners. So as we build out a culture and entertainment district, we need cultural partners. These two images here, the one on the left is the new Central Library, so the Calgary Library as a partner. And then on the right there, you see the King Eddie Hotel and how we repurposed that building, and it's integrated now into the National Music Center. I shouldn't say we, but that is part of the district. And those are our two very large catalyst projects as we think about the culture and entertainment district. So they exist today, and then we think about how we can respond to those and how they can inform kind of future developments to really grow the culture and entertainment district as well. I speak about our development partners. So our mandate, as I mentioned, was to build infrastructure. We had a lot of horizontal construction type projects. We did some public art projects and some placemaking, created some wonderful spaces with the hopes that we would attract development partners. These are just some of the images of the towers that have gone up in East Village over the last handful of years, some commercial space as well as residential space. What was really interesting is when we started to do this work, we went out to do a little bit of a market test to see if there was any interest in private development in the area. And what was really interesting was that there was very little interest from the local market, but interest primarily from Vancouver and Toronto markets. It was a little bit puzzling and somewhat baffling to those markets. They couldn't quite understand why there wasn't this great interest in local development here, given that we had a fully funded and master planned community. It just didn't make sense to them that nobody wanted, or there was very little interest in developing the land from local developers. And I think that's just simply because of the association that was attached to the East Village in previous years. So we did have these developers, both from, as I mentioned, primarily from Vancouver and Toronto. And as they started to develop out the area, then there was, of course, more local interest in developing the area as well. So a little bit of momentum gained through those developers. I mentioned some of the community partners, some of the residents from the East Village up in the left-hand corner there. CARIA, which is a project that we just completed. CARIA is an outreach program, social outreach program dedicated to supporting families. And in the bottom, again, a very important partner, the drop-in center there as well. And of course, we have our Castell building, and the studios of Sapple reside in that building currently now. Community partners, the two largest community partners in the south end of Rivers District are the Calgary Stampede and CSEC, or the Calgary Flames. So CSEC is the Calgary Sport and Entertainment Corporation, and they are significant partners in the work that we are doing now in the south end, and we'll get to that in just a second. Next slide, please. I'm confused. Is this the next one? Sorry. Okay, great. So you see what really is kind of the boundaries of the culture and entertainment district. I mean, of course, there are some other things through the district. The top left corner there is the Arts Commons project, and we can speak about that in just a second. But the culture and entertainment district, for the most part, is considered south of 9th Avenue and encompasses all of Stampede Park as well. It's a 20-year vision for the plan with the intent of 4 million square feet of mixed use residential, commercial, retail space, and hoping to draw approximately 8,000 new residents to the community as well. Significant dollars have been poured into infrastructure to date, and currently there's about $1.5 billion worth of work planned for the culture and entertainment district that we will be delivering over the next 5 to 6 years. So it really is a significant investment in the area and will happen very, very quickly. This image, I just wanted to include this one to kind of demonstrate all the things that we're thinking about in terms of policy and plans when we're thinking about the development through the whole area. So Stampede Park has their own concept plan, which we have to be mindful of and respect, and must inform our development plans. We have the Rivers District Master Plan. The primary study area is that white boundary, as I spoke about. The Rivers District as well, the whole Rivers District Plan. And then the East Village Master Plan, which was our original plan to develop that smaller 50-acre area as well. So those are all the plans, policies that we consider through this development. You'll see some of those broken lines that are outside of the primary area, and that was really just simply to highlight the considerations that that we must think about when we're developing the area. So for example, the kind of southeast corner there of the broken line, we start thinking about how we might travel through this area, pedestrian travel, vehicle travel as well, or cyclists. And so we have to look at some of those periphery areas as they inform our kind of multimodal strategy and pedestrian strategy through the area. So that's why we included those in this image. Next slide, thank you. This is the existing condition of the culture and entertainment district, and those white masses are kind of the structures and the buildings that exist to date. I really just wanted to show this just to kind of to demonstrate sort of the bare land condition that you see here, and the asphalt parking lots for the most part really are what make up the area. And just to remind us how we need to consider how we impact this area going forward, and be really, really mindful about where we place structures, how we connect the structures, how we think about connectivity from our adjacent neighborhoods as well. So You think about the bus barns in the northeast corner there, which is that large white shape, and how it really is not ideal, certainly in terms of building a vibrant community. So just thinking about keeping in mind those things as we think about locations for new builds and for specific public realm projects as well. This slide shows the critical corner of culture and entertainment district. So that dot in the middle there, then with the red outline, that's really the ground zero of culture and entertainment district, much like the Simmons building was of East Village. We put a lot of focus and energy into that intersection and thinking about what it is and thinking about how people travel through it, to it, and from it. To the south of that intersection, you will see the existing Saddle Dome on the right, which is that circle, and the existing convention venue footprint to the sort of southwest corner of that intersection. So, constantly thinking and working with partner groups, including the City of Calgary, about how we treat that intersection and how that intersection feeds the remainder of the district as well. And the red line is, of course, the transit line, and the green is the proposed green line. So again, layering that in and thinking about how public transit accesses this area. The blue lines indicate either the connections that currently exist or those that existed prior to this, to development happening a number of years ago, and really thinking about how we might reestablish some of those connections. So right now, Stampede Park and the east boundary that I was describing earlier with the bus barns there, really, really poor condition along the riverway and very unfortunate. It doesn't see a lot of use. It's not a highly desirable area. There is NMAX Park, which is the green space just to the east of that pathway. Sorry, I can't point with my cursor, but and so we want to think about opening up Stampede Park. We want to think about how our adjacent neighbors, Ramsey to the east, Beltline to the west of us, and Inglewood, of course, and how we can kind of connect to these communities and think about full connections through, and thinking about a multimodal strategy, really how pedestrians move through those areas easily, how they can access the area easily, how vehicle traffic moves through the area easily as well. Bikes, all sorts of travel. So we would really love to think about opening up some of those streets and returning them back to the river, so there's some connection to the river as well as connection to adjacent communities. The bottom blue line there, you see 17th Avenue. Excuse me just for a second. So you see the bottom blue line there is 17th Avenue. For anyone that is very familiar with this area, they'll know that the Beltline is a mixed-use community. It's a very vibrant and active community. And 17th Avenue really is the main corridor, the east-west corridor through that area. It comes to almost a dead stop. There's almost a physical boundary as it enters Stampede Park as a result of a train station that's there, of an overpass, and a gated condition really on the west side of Stampede Park. So Stampede Park is private land, as I mentioned earlier, and it has the ability to sort of gate the area. And so we are now working with Stampede closely to see how we can open up the park to the remainder, as I said, the adjacent neighborhoods. So one of the projects that we have that CMLC is funneling our CRL funds toward is rebuilding that train station and developing an at-grade pedestrian crossing. So that will remove physically that boundary that's there and really draw 17th Avenue into Stampede Park, so that we can have pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic move from that community to the west right into Stampede Park. So that is our primary project, and it of course is tied into the BMO convention venue project as well, and the event center project and numerous others, but a significant infrastructure project in terms of opening up the area and drawing in the communities from the west. And then, I think for the most part, we have some large city building projects that seem to be on the public's radar. But as I mentioned earlier, we really are community builders, and we like to think about the spaces that connect these large buildings. The yellow is public realm projects we're working on. So the one I just mentioned, the 17th Avenue extension project, there's one that moves down from that key intersection down to 17th Avenue, and that's a public realm project that as well is funded through our CRL. And that project really knits together kind of all the building projects that are in the area. So it thinks about how the new expanded convention venue can really connect through sight lines and physically with the event center that is currently being planned. you'll see there's a plaza, civic plaza, that space is designated for a civic plaza within our master plan as well. And so some of those pink spaces reflect the master plan, the Rivers District master plan, but haven't yet been developed. But we're keeping a line of sight to those public spaces as we think about our development in the future. Next slide, thanks. This is just a quick snapshot, kind of an aerial view. I can't remember if it's this one or the next one. I can speak to either. The pink here just highlights some of the culture and entertainment projects that we're working on now that really come together to form this area. The very large pink block, kind of it's more in the south portion of the Rivers District there, that is our new convention center expansion. I mentioned Fort Calgary earlier to the northeast corner, and then the Arts Commons as well. We have the TELUS Convention Center and the Teatro, the Teatro building, but the theaters as well up on the northwest corner there. And I guess what this image really demonstrates is the culture and entertainment district is sort of defined as the south end, but really it becomes kind of the whole area in the Rivers District as these venues connect. So right now we have an Arts Commons project underway. We're working through design. If you were to attend a conference in the existing conference center on Stampede Park, highly unlikely that you would choose to walk from that convention venue up to, say, Olympic Plaza as it exists today, or the Arts Commons project. It's probably only a 6-block walk. It's probably 10, 12-minute walk. There is not a lot of interesting things to see. And so people choose to get in their cars and kind of drive back and forth. Obviously, our intent is to change that and to build out the area so that there's some really interesting things to see as pedestrians are moving through the district. And this is just a kind of a zoomed in shot of ground zero of a Stampede Park, and you'll see the new footprint of the BMO Center expansion in the kind of bubble there, and you'll see that there's a very, very large plaza. What you can't see through this design or through this image is that there's a large archway designed into the new expansion that will create these sight lines to the event center and also this sort of physical connection as well. Our intent with the Stampede Trail, pardon me, Stampede Trail Public Realm project, which is the one I was speaking about just a few minutes ago, that connects that significant intersection down to the center of Stampede Park. The idea there is to create a really great condition for future retail space that will enable a good connection and interface between the event center, the public realm, and the convention venue as well, and then allow this connectivity down to the 17th Avenue extension as well, which will eventually connect to the west community of Beltline. So really just continuing to think about how these individual buildings can be connected together through public realm and placemaking efforts and tie the whole thing, knit the whole thing together to become a whole district. And then I touched on some projects. So here's the condition I spoke of earlier. Really, really, really unfortunate condition. Not only is it unsightly, but it really does just create this physical barricade, this physical block to the community of Beltline and the connection to Stampede Park. So the parking lot you see on the right-hand side to the side of that is the Beltline community, and the only way that pedestrians can cross this main McLeod Trail thoroughfare is up over that spiral ramp and the pedestrian plus 15 overpass. And that is the only way. Unless you're arriving in Calgary Transit, there's very few ways to enter Stampede Park. So this project sees this entire structure coming down, including that overpass. And as I mentioned earlier, it will create an at-grade level crossing for pedestrians. So really a pedestrian-focused effort, less focus on vehicle traffic, and we'll restructure that station as well to access the train differently so that we don't have to have this series of ramps and stairs and making it really complicated to open up this area and to access these amenities. And here is a concept rendering of the design for the new station. So you'll see to the left of this image is the Beltline community. So this is now looking north, and you'll see how this significant intersection really that connects McLeod Trail, Beltline, the public transit access, and our new convention venue as well. So we've really opened it up and made it conducive to bike travel and pedestrian travel as well. So very, very excited about this project. There's another shot of it there on the left, an evening shot. The 17th Avenue extension is the public realm project I mentioned earlier. So the space that you see kind of the canopy in the background of the train station, but really it's this public realm space that we're putting a big focus on. So right now we have our existing convention venue and we have our existing train station, this sort of alley condition between the two of them. Again, less than desirable, not a path anyone wants to travel through. And in most cases, I would say it's actually unsafe. So widening that area, creating a much better condition there, and allowing pedestrians and bike traffic to move from the north end of the district down into the south end of the district. And then this is the condition that existed even just a few months ago, right on Stampede Park. So this is the center of Stampede Park here. You see our old corral structure and this +15 structure. So this really terrible yellow awning connected back to the train station that I showed in a few slides before. Again, nothing, nothing great in this area that would draw people down. We've now removed this entire structure. We've removed the corral and this +15 structure to focus our efforts on the expansion and the Stampede Trail project as well. This is an image of the BMO Convention Center expansion. Really exciting project. I mentioned that archway you can see in this image here. So creating this sort of civic plaza space where users can come 365 days a year. This image really depicts the 10-day Stampede Festival, but we know that's only a 10-day event. But the idea with this plaza is that we would draw visitors to the area, that there would be good reason for visitors to Calgary and Calgarians to come and enjoy this space throughout the year, sort of a 365-day condition, whether that's an ice rink built in that plaza or a festival tree. There is a pavilion planned for the end of that kind of extension arm. It's not a pavilion in the sense that it's an enclosed space, but that area will be programmed as well. For those that are familiar with the Stampede 10-Day Festival, there is what we call a Coke stage, which has a number of performers, a good lineup of performers through the Stampede. And that function will really move to the end of this arm. And so hoping to create this really wonderful plaza space, as I mentioned, that can be used throughout the year. A number of activities that occur on park through the year. I'm thinking of another one, the Calgary Marathon. And so moving those activities and kind of focusing them in on this area so we can utilize this space. Up to the right of this image would be Stampede Trail, our public realm project that we're designing now. And then eventually, hopefully a retail condition that interfaces with the event center, which would be kind of up to the northeast of this. Just an evening shot of that same building taken almost from the same spot. This building was designed really to think about the Stampede brand in a more contemporary way. I'm oversimplifying it, but really to take Stampede and kind of bring them into the current state and think about how their brand can be exemplified through this building. So the cladding, for example, is a metal panel that's supposed to be reminiscent of sort of old barn board. The kind of podium level is gray masonry that's supposed to represent the kind of grit of Stampede as well. So very thoughtful in how they want to address the Stampede brand and not kind of dismiss the history of Stampede. So I think very successful in that regard. The window that's showing on the top left there is a 50,000 square foot ballroom. They wanted to open it right up so that it's the view of Stampede Park and South. So this one will be completed in 2024. And that's just an interior shot as well. When we were working through the design of that building, very careful in how we consider the interior spaces and how they can connect with the exterior spaces and connect back to the remainder of the district and the city as well. So this is what we call our hub space. It has a giant skylight, looks up to the big blue sky. That was important to Stampede that we addressed that. But what you don't see in this image is this very large kind of curtain wall and glazing that looks directly into downtown. So you have these sight lines back to the area of the Calgary Tower and Arts Commons, again, making all these visual connections, physical connections to other significant venues in the area to create kind of a holistic district. How are we doing for time? Okay, I'll wrap this up. This is a very early concept drawing of the event center. We are in design right now. That project has been paused for a number of reasons, but this is just a very early concept drawing of it. This is really Stampede Trail as we're imagining it now. So this is looking North through the district, you would see the National Music Center as an archway on the north of this festival trail. It's intended to be public realm, a festival street that's to be used throughout the year, not just for stampede events and not just for hockey events, but just a number of events that, you know, that would draw really citizens of Calgary down, not just ticket holders. Just another shot of the Calgary Event Center. So we'll replace the existing Saddle Dome. And then just there speaking about the dynamic outdoor festival space that we're planning for that area. Just wanted to speak briefly about Arts Commons as well. We are fully funded through design phase, and we recently have funding confirmed for construction of phase 1. So very excited about that as well. This is a significant project that really will be a catalyst project as well, not just for this area, but for the whole culture and entertainment district. And so phase 1 will be a new build, the Roadhouse, you see that red block there, and then a reimagining of the existing venues as well. So really significant arts venue project in the city that will really strengthen the, my lights just went off, that will really strengthen the district for sure. And again, make connections between the structures that are planned for the south in the district, connecting them back up to the north municipal building and the Civic Plaza, Olympic Plaza there as we see it. And then this just speaks to those benefits that come out of doing these large projects. Arts Commons specifically is intended to create jobs. It's intended to, of course, support our local arts community and the arts community abroad as well. There's a public engagement survey underway. We do that through all our projects to really understand what not only the citizens of Calgary want, but the larger kind of users of this building, what they might want to see here as well. So again, in kind of pre-design of this project, very, very excited about this one and think it will be a key piece, very transformational in this area. Fort Calgary, I'll touch on that one briefly as well. That's an existing structure that has had its home in East Village for really since the area started to grow up and develop. We are working with Fort Calgary to design and construct a new museum there to think about the parts of the Fort Calgary and the Calgary history that we really want to share that weren't previously shared, and think about a way that we can bring these communities together and create some exhibition space so we can tell our story and our histories. There is a very early concept rendering of that Fort Calgary new museum. So it'll be an expansion to the existing Fort Calgary space. I spoke mostly about this earlier, just the growth potential in the mixed sectors that were intended for the district. A festival street, again, first and foremost, we want to build a community and a district. We want to think about some good retail conditions. We want to think about interfacing. We want to think about hospitality and tourism. The convention venue, as it's planned now, is intended to be a tier 1 facility. So really drawing visitors to Calgary and giving visitors reasons to come into this district that they might not have otherwise or previously, making it affordable as well. So drawing, again, a diverse number of residents to the area. I spoke earlier about those existing demographics that existed in the area when we came on the scene. So thinking about how we can support and provide additional amenities for those populations while at the same time thinking about a different demographic and residential visitors to the area as well. Amount and type of land assets. I'm happy to answer questions on this. I guess I would just say a good portion of the land through the area is privately owned. Some of it is owned by the City of Calgary and some of it is currently held by CMLC. We work with our private partners really to think about how we can impact the area and how we are very, very thoughtful about the future development of the area as well. And then delivery and execution, that's just a general statement about how CMLC tries to deliver our projects on time and on budget. That is in support of our partners and all of their business needs and their objectives as well through the area. And that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.